Did you pick yourself up an AR-15 during 2020 and it's your first, and maybe now you've got enough time behind the trigger, you've shot enough rounds through it, and you're thinking to yourself, I really want to take this to the next level? Today I'm going to talk about 5 of my recommendations for simple AR-15 modifications that don't require any special tools and are just going to take your gun to maybe the next level as far as performance or just the way it feels and handles. Before we get going though, I want to say thank you to a sponsor of this video. It is TacPack. They are a monthly subscription service. I'm sure you've heard about it 100 times by now, but I'm grateful to have their support. They've sent me out some really cool products in the past. For example, one of them that I use basically weekly because I'm constantly fiddling with my guns is this hammer and punch set. This has been really nice for me, especially when I've been working on some of my 3D printed guns or my AK guns that kind of need a little bit of a tapping and hammering to get them to work right. If you use code Reno at checkout, it will give you a free grab bag that is worth, I think, 40 bucks, something like that. I'm thankful to have their support. I think that TacPack would actually be an excellent gift for someone. Maybe you have a friend in your life that you don't know exactly what they're looking for at any given time and you don't want to give them just a gift card. I think that TacPack would be a great subscription service to kind of give them something to look forward to every month. It's a cool little gift. You know, they get a box, they open it up, they get 5 or 6 cool things. I have so many knives. If you're into knives, definitely for you. But I'm very grateful to have TacPack. Use the link in the description and the code, and that will give you a free grab bag. Check it out. Thank you, TacPack. First of all, if you have not gotten enough time behind your gun and enough practice with it, do not think that going out and buying all of these products that I'm going to mention today will make you a better shooter. If you only have 500 rounds through your gun or even less and it's your first AR, spend the money, buy more ammo, do more dry fire practice at home. 5 minutes a day is all it takes to help improve your skills. You will see a much higher improvement by just dry firing at home than you will by slapping a whole bunch of attachments on your gun and expecting to be John Wick. Now that being said, let's get into the first product I'm going to be talking about today, the Magpul BAD lever. Now what the BAD lever is a little device that sits on the side of your gun, attaches to your bolt catch, and allows you to control the bolt by locking it open or closing it from this side. If you're a right-handed shooter, you can simply lock the bolt open like that instead of having to go the traditional route of if you're shooting, you boom, 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 and then you want to lock the bolt back because you have a malfunction. You don't have to come here and then back out there. It's as simple as, so I'm shooting. That's it. That's all it is. I took this hand off to rack the gun. My fire control group hand still stays here. And then the benefit that it adds in addition to that, let's grab an empty mag, not a loaded mag. When you go to do your reload, so you're shooting, you're shooting, gun goes dry, you grab a new mag, you put it in, you can then sweep this down. Do not press like this. If you press the gun with the BAD lever like this, you can potentially slip off. But if you just simply swipe down, it will close the bolt for you. This is faster. Whether or not you agree with it, whether or not you like this product, that's totally up to you. But it is pretty much impossible to argue that it is not faster to simply come here and then your hand, the second you feel it lock in, goes forward as opposed to coming up, pressing this, and then going there. It is only going to save milliseconds of time for the reloads. The biggest benefit that I see is being able to lock the bolt back to the rear and clear a malfunction without having to take the gun down here or coming back here like this and doing the Macarena, hands going back forward. So for me, for the $25 that a BAD lever costs, I put this on every single one of my guns. If I have an AR-15 and I've got enough time behind it and I decide, yes, I like this gun, or no, I don't, I'm going to put a BAD lever on it. I'm kind of the opinion that I want all my guns to be pretty much the same, so all of the parts that I'm talking about today, for the most part, are going to be found on every AR that I own or have owned. Let's move on to the second. Again, on the lower receiver, we are talking about this Radian safety. What this Radian safety is a simple 45-degree angle safety that is ambidextrous. If you live in the state of California and you're running a featureless firearm, you absolutely need an ambi safety, but I think that a lot of people would find the benefit and the ease of use if you're going to be shooting left or right-handed. The ambi safety is really nice. You can get various different lengths of the levers. For example, so I'm a right-handed shooter. On my right side here, I put the shorter lever And on the side that I use more often, I use the long lever. It's got a nice short throw at about 45 degrees, really simple, easy to use, easy to install. There are other options out there that have become very popular lately that require a roll pin. Not a fan of those, especially for people that are new to it. It's a little bit more permanent, but it's also more difficult to install and easier to fuck up in my mind. Pardon my French. These go on by a simple detent. I'm not a fan of the traditional style that screws in. At a carbine course, actually at 2 different carbine courses I've taken, I have had the screw-on safeties, the ones that you go on either side. I have had one of the levers fall off twice in my time, and that's with blue Loctite on them. So for me, I immediately, once I had it happen the second time, I was like, all right, done with it. We're moving on. We're finding a different system. So for me, I now have Radian safeties, the Talon safeties on all of my guns. They run about 50 bucks. You can find them on sale for a little bit cheaper. They come in a wide variety of colors, but black, flat dark earth, blue, red, gray, and tungsten. But if I'm wrong on that, they 100% have blue, black, flat dark earth, and gray. The third part that I want to talk about is the charging handle. We've used this several times in this video already, but it's very simple. This is the Radian Raptor LT. I put one of these on all of my guns. I have one on my AR-10. The only AR-15 that I currently don't have one of these on is actually that PSA in the back, because I wanted to keep that gun as close to stock as possible while I do the review. Then once I've got more time behind it, I'm going to go ahead and slap another one of these charging handles in it. These run about 65 bucks, but they're very well constructed. Beware of knockoffs. There's a lot of companies that are making poorly constructed, poorly designed, weaker versions of these that do not have the Radian labels on them. Buy an actual Radian charging handle. It's easier to grab a hold of them. On the normal charging handle, you kind of have to just perfectly hit that little bit here, and it's only on one side. These are just really easy to use on either side. I think they're a good option. So continuing to the fourth option, in a lot of AR-15s, they ship with a cheap carbine buffer, and the buffer is this thing that slides back and forth every time you fire it. The carbine buffers, honestly, I think it's a damn shame that any company nowadays is shipping a gun with a carbine buffer, because just about every single gun is gassed to a point where an H2 or a heavier buffer will work just significantly better. What it's going to do is smooth out that recoil impulse just a little bit. These are by Expo Arms. You can get them from Primary Arms, and they cost about $20. Honestly, I put one of these in literally every one of my guns. That PSA AR build back there, it shipped with the carbine buffer, which is lighter than the H2. I'm going to test it, but I can assure you that after the first 100 rounds or so, I'm probably going to immediately put this H2, which is dedicated for that gun. Very, very, very few guns are undergassed. In the modern day of AR-15s, it seems like everybody is going for overgassing for reliability and difficulty in adverse conditions, which I have never had an AR-15 that could not cycle steel case or very, very softly tuned reloads with an H2 buffer. Most guns, I think, run better. It's going to slow down that recoil pulse. It's going to make it just feel a little bit softer. You put one of these in your gun, and it's crazy how it changes the way it feels. You wouldn't think it's that big of a deal, but for me, it's big enough of a deal to the point where I literally have one of these in all 5 of the lowers that I have. The next part and the last part is honestly going to be the most expensive, and realistically, there's probably cheaper options out there, but for me, I love putting Geissele triggers in every gun that I own. This is the Geissele S3G, which is a single stage, or what they call a single stage trigger. I'm going to pull it from this side. Boom. You saw how short of a break that was? Let's rack that. It's just a really damn good trigger. This gun is super easy to bump fire, but it's also very easy to shoot fast and controlled. I love how soft this trigger is. I love how clean the break is. People are going to comment probably about a whole bunch of other triggers. The LaRue MBT2S is very comparable to some of the Geissele double stage triggers. And at about $100 or less, I think it's about $80 for the LaRue MBT, it might be a good option. I personally don't have enough time behind a LaRue trigger to actually say whether or not it's better, but it's one of those things where, for me, Geissele all the way. If you don't want to spend $150 to $200 for a Geissele trigger, you can always go with the ALG ACT. ALG is the sister company of Geissele, and they produce a very good trigger that's more mil spec. It's they break it anywhere from 4.5 to 5.5 pounds, depending on what spring you put in them. They're a smooth upgrade. The typical mil-spec trigger is just absolute garbage. It's going to be gritty. It's going to have a lot of take-up. It's going to have a lot of over-travel. Honestly, mil-spec triggers get the job done, and a lot of people are doing just fine overseas with them. But if you have the money and you have the means, why not have a better shooting experience? The trigger won't make you a better shooter, but it makes it easier to be a better shooter, if that makes sense. There are people that can outshoot me with a piece of shit BCA with a mil-spec trigger that's 8 pounds and is gritty and has a ton of take-up versus me with my rigged out gun. But I can assure you that if they shot a nicer firearm, they would perform better. So while these upgrades are nice, ultimately they aren't the end-all be-all when it comes to performance. At the end of the day, how you have developed your skills and how much time you have with your gun and your ammo selection, understanding your holdovers, understanding the velocity, understanding just how your gun works is going to be a bigger improvement than any particular part can provide. However, with that being said, all the parts that I talked about today are pretty much things that I put in just about every AR. I've kind of figured out my formula, my secret sauce of what I like when it comes to building a gun. So for me, those are my 5 recommendations that'll kind of help you take your gun to the next level or just improve upon the existing foundation that you have. If you are looking to buy parts for a friend, ultimately, I don't think that's the best idea. But if you have a friend who just got an AR-15, any one of these parts that I just mentioned would be an upgrade over the typical M&Ps or the Rugers or just those cheap entry grade ARs. You take a Smith & Wesson Sport 2 or any Ruger or any of the typical guns you're going to find at a big box store, you slap a Geissele trigger in it, a better safety, a better charging handle, and an H2 buffer in it, yeah, you're damn right that gun's going to be a better and more pleasing shooting experience. So if you're looking to buy some of these parts for some people for about $100, I think you can get the safety, the buffer, and the bad lever. So not a bad deal all in all. I'm going to have a link in the description that will have a link to another website where I will have some of these parts list, but feel free to just look them up for yourself. Ultimately, if you don't want to use my affiliate links, don't. And I appreciate everyone's support. If you want to support the channel, Subscribestar is an excellent way to do so. Also, I have merch, shallnotcomply.com, the link in the description to that merch store. Anything you buy from there, even if it's not my merch, I will get a cut if you use the link in the description. You guys know the drill. Have fun, be safe, stay dangerous. Peace.